The crazy thing about the NBA is that it isn't always shaped by blockbuster trades or superstar decisions. Sometimes it all comes down to the tiny moments nobody thinks twice about. A random injury, a split-second decision, a front office hesitation, and suddenly the entire league's timeline gets thrown off course. Today, we're looking at some of the NBA's biggest what-ifs, the sliding door moments where something small could have changed everything. Because in the NBA, even the smallest twists can create a massive ripple effect. In the early 1990s, Shaquille O'Neal and the notorious B.I.G., aka Biggie Smalls, were both rising icons in their own lanes. The two were fans of each other's work, and over time, they built a genuine friendship. That bond even led to a collaboration, with Biggie hopping on a track for one of Shaq's albums. Fast forward to March 6, 1997, Shaq was in Los Angeles celebrating his 25th birthday. That night, he met up with Biggie, and the two planned to meet again at the Soul Train Music Awards after party happening just 2 days later.
I had on a cold white suit and with the white hat and all that. I put some headphones on. I was actually on my way. I was dressed, ready to go.
But that second meetup never happened because Shaq accidentally fell asleep. He slept straight through the entire party, and it wasn't until the next morning when a call from his mother woke him up with devastating news.
She said, "Did you go to the party?" And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" She said, "You know your friend was shot."
Biggie had been killed in the early hours of March 9th, 1997, shortly following the after-party that Shaq was supposed to be at. A car pulled up alongside the SUV Biggie was riding in and opened fire. And just like that, one of hip-hop's greatest voices was gone. To this day, Shaq still wrestles with the what-ifs. He wonders if he could have somehow prevented Biggie's death if he had been there.
I think that man would have changed things. If Shaq would have said, "You know what? I'm gonna come with y'all." I'm sure him and Big would have rolled together. I definitely think if Shaq would have been there, it definitely would have changed. Definitely would have changed.
And naturally, when people imagine that scenario, they always picture themselves stepping in as the hero. I don't fault Shaq for that at all. But there's another angle people don't talk about. What if Shaq had become a victim too? What if the roles were reversed and Biggie survived while spending years wishing he never invited Shaq to that party? Or even worse, what if both of them were killed that night? As an NBA fan, I can't help but to think about how history would have changed if Shaq had been shot and killed. That's immediately where my mind went the first time I heard this story. And while Biggie's death is heartbreaking on its own, a part of me is genuinely thankful that Shaq fell asleep. I understand why Shaq doesn't view it that way. It's human to wonder if you could have made a difference, but I know for a fact his mother must have felt a wave of relief when he answered the phone, because she knew he had planned to be at that same party. Looking back, it truly was a blessing that Shaq took that unplanned nap. He might not see it as a blessing, but I'm sure the people who love him do, because without that moment of pure accident, who knows how NBA history would have unfolded. Patrick Beverley has played for 7 different NBA teams throughout his career, but what a lot of people don't know is that he almost started his journey on one of the most iconic squads of all time, the 2010 Miami Heat with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Coming out of Arkansas, Pat Bev wasn't exactly high on NBA radars, but the Miami Heat saw something in him. They brought him into training camp, and Beverley immediately made an impression. He earned a roster spot and even appeared in a few preseason games. It looked like he was in.
God damn, I'm in the NBA. It's official. Mind you, LeBron is there and everything. The decision, I'm part of that team. I'm ecstatic. Not only I'm on the Heat, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and D Wade is here. Signed contract. Damn, I'm really a part of this. I'm here.
But fate had other plans, and the crazy part is, the thing that derailed him wasn't even his fault. During a preseason practice, the Heat were running a 3-on-3 drill. LeBron was dominating, and head coach Eric Spoelstra wanted someone to step up and try to stop him. That's when Mike Miller volunteered.
Practicing. We do a drill, like a 3-on-3 drill. Can't nobody stop LeBron. He's having his way. Spo goes, "Someone step up, guard LeBron." Mike Miller goes, "I got him, coach." Everybody looking like, fuck?
Almost instantly, disaster struck. Miller's thumb got caught in LeBron's jersey, and he ended up breaking it on his shooting hand, knocking him out for months. The Heat suddenly needed a veteran wing who could play right away, and Jerry Stackhouse was that emergency signing. To make room for Stackhouse, Miami had to cut someone, and that someone was Patrick Beverley.
Bron does move. Mike Miller hands get caught on LeBron. Either broke thumb or something, hand injury. He's out. They need bigger guard. They cut the guy who makes the least on the contract. Me. I'm out the league that fast. Because he wanted to be, Mike Miller wanted to all of a sudden be all defensive one day.
Looking back at how the 2011 NBA Finals played out, it's hard not to wonder. The Heat were torched by Jason Terry that series. Maybe Beverly locks him up. Maybe Terry doesn't explode the way he did. Maybe that changes everything. That offseason, Miami drafted Norris Cole, who eventually helped them win the 2012 championship, a role that could have belonged to Beverly. Instead, Pat Bev went overseas, battled his way back, and finally got another NBA shot in 2012 with the Houston Rockets. And from the minute he stepped on the court, he made sure everyone remembered his name. He quickly became one of the league's most feared defenders, clearly fueled by what happened in Miami.
Second quarter, Beverly throws it down. Great crossover by Beverly.
Now, I played for Miami with LeBron. They cut me. LeBron got there, they cut me. I remember like it was yesterday, so yeah, it's a chip on my shoulder.
I was cut by the Heat.
So that history you have with the Heat, that gave you some extra motivation, extra juice tonight?
Of course. I'm shocked that I, even kept my composure.
And while Mike Miller would later come up huge for the Heat in the 2012 and 2013 finals, you could argue he also indirectly cost them the 2011 title, because that team desperately needed someone like Patrick Beverly to slow down Jason Terry.
Magic, what do you expect from LeBron tonight? I want to see him, Stewart, have some fun. Get into his defense, because the key is, can he stop Jason Terry?
The one thing missing from Charles Barkley's legendary resume is an NBA championship. But here's the crazy part. That gap might have been filled if the Philadelphia 76ers hadn't backed out of the trade at the absolute last second. As we all know, Barkley was eventually shipped to the Phoenix Suns in June of 1992. He immediately won league MVP and led the Suns to the NBA Finals in the first season he was there. But what most people don't know is that before Phoenix ever came into the picture, the Sixers came incredibly close to sending him to the Lakers instead. And when I say close, I mean his agent literally called him and told him the deal was basically done. So what does Barkley do? He starts celebrating, drinking, excited that he's finally getting out of Philadelphia. But just 3 hours later, the phone rings again. The trade fell through at the last minute. Suddenly, not only was he not getting traded to the Lakers, he actually had to suit up and play for Philly that same night while still intoxicated from his early celebration.
I got a call from my agent first thing in the morning. He says, we think the Sixers and the Lakers have a deal. And he says, I said, the deal done? He says, yes, the deal is done. So we went out and started celebrating. And then about 3 hours later, I get a call from my agent saying the Sixers backed out of the deal. I have never drank before a game before, but that's the only time I've ever did it in my life. I don't even remember the game.
Now the question is, when exactly did this all happen? While researching this story, I kept running into two possible timelines, either the late 1980s or 1992. Every interview where Barkley talks about it, he always says the 1980s.
And what year is this?
Somewhere in the mid-80s.
Okay, so you're in Philly.
Yeah. It was in the late 80s. Because I didn't get traded the first time until 92, but it was in the late 80s, like 88, 89, 90. I think that's when the Pistons were the champions.
But every article I came across all say 1992 specifically. But honestly, no matter which year it was, Barkley likely ends up with a ring in either scenario. If the deal went down in the late 80s, look how dominant the Lakers were at that time. Teaming Barkley with Magic Johnson, a guy who elevated everyone around him, could have easily led to an extra championship or two for the Lakers. Maybe the Bulls don't win their first title in 1991. Maybe that entire timeline shifts. But if the trade actually almost happened in 1992, then things get even more interesting. It's not unrealistic to think Barkley could have eventually overlapped with the Shaq and Kobe era. Remember, Chuck was still an all-star during the 1996-97 season, which is the year both Shaq and Kobe arrived in LA. Barkley didn't retire until the 1999-2000 season, the same season the Lakers won the first of 3 straight titles. So whichever timeline you want to imagine, whichever alternate universe you go with, the odds of Charles Barkley winning at least one championship skyrocket. He's already considered one of the greatest players we've ever seen, but a ring would have elevated him even further in the all-time conversation. It's no secret that Larry Bird dealt with some serious back issues throughout the later stages of his career. And while most people automatically assume that his chronic back pain came from the wear and tear of NBA basketball, that's not exactly where the story begins. During the 1985 offseason, Bird's mother mentioned that she needed a new driveway. Now, Bird could have easily paid professionals to handle it no problem, but in classic Larry fashion, he insisted on doing the job himself.
Larry decides to do it himself.
This is Larry Bird, the superstar, out there breaking his back, literally.
He spent days shoveling gravel, and in the process, he seriously hurt his back. From that moment on, things were never the same.
He had lost the structural stability in his spine.
Now, he did go on to win another MVP and another NBA championship literally the next season, but the pain never really went away.
Larry had 2 jobs his last 7 years of playing. It was playing basketball, and then it was him being committed to taking care of his back.
It got so bad that he couldn't even sit on the bench during games. He had to lay on the floor just to relieve the pressure.
Every time I would play, I was wondering if I was going to be in a wheelchair. Was I ever going to be able to, walk on the beach or hold my kids?
And sure, the back injury wasn't the only thing he dealt with during his career, but the other injuries were manageable. His back, though, was the one thing that never fully healed.
Achilles wasn't going to beat me, but the back's got me. I couldn't get up and down the court like I wanted to. I always felt that that once I had surgery and I was feeling good, I could get back to where I was at because I can get myself in shape and I can prepare myself. But once my back started acting up again, I couldn't do that. And after that, it was all downhill. I thought that it would pass eventually.
It shaved years off his prime, and ultimately it shortened his career, which officially came to an end in 1992. Now, calling this a what if might sound like a stretch, because Bird had already accomplished so much before the injury. Normally, what ifs are reserved for players whose careers were derailed before they ever had the chance to achieve greatness. But still, there's nothing wrong with wondering just how much more dominant Larry could have been. How much further could he have pushed his legacy? How much stronger would his case be in the GOAT debate if his back never gave out?